line usually, especially when you wanna go straight turn, there's not enough markings. Like the Rosecrans one or 118.
You're good?
We can work on it, hey, there's.
Just add some corners, add some.
We're good?
We're on it.
Feels
Get
good.
people to go straight.
Okay, welcome to our work meeting
turn.
tonight for Wednesday, July
The
10th.
you're talking about.
We're gonna jump right in. I think there was a motion to move an item. Item 1.1, review of this evening's agenda. Any changes, comments? Okay. Seeing none? Thoughts?
Yeah.
1.2, future agenda items. You have some?
Well, they're based off what I've heard from you, so.
Okay.
So go ahead. Cause you might say my copy.
No, go ahead, you say it.
Okay. And Mayor received an email from Wasatch Front Regional Council, and they want to come to a work session in August. Is that something that the council would like to see on the agenda in August?
Why?
You got the email.
Sorry, I just,
I think it's specifically related to transit and the transit study that they're going through. Me and Blake have attended their technical meetings, and that was their goal, was to meet with the cities, the councils, to really get an idea of where our priorities are. So that's my understanding. I didn't get the email, but in our last technical group meeting, they said they were gonna be reaching out for that. And they are doing the fresh look transit study, they're calling it, right? So
That
That's
would be
what-
a good topic for a joint.
The 31st?
I'd agree.
And Brody's been on the technical committee. I've
Yeah,
been to both
Brody's
technical and policy.
Probably that's not a bad idea.
We can see if they come on the 31st, but if we have a meeting.
I won't be in attendance.
I know,
I won't take.
I know.
Can you be there on the 31st?
Yes.
I can probably call in.
We have one of
It
the.
depends on if I have
shoot
the
one.
game thing, but if it's a joint meeting, we don't have to have a quorum of us.
You don't?
That's why a joint meeting would be good.
I think you
I think you do.
do.
cause it's not, we're not doing, it's not really business, we're
It's
not
like
making.
a work meeting, but
But it's the higher power has the.
Jackie, I
authority.
trust Jackie.
Yeah.
Jackie's saying.
You have to have a quorum of the council to hold the meeting.
Can you be there on the 31st?
I can probably be there, but I'm secretly hoping I have a rich relative that's dying and we have to go to Fiji to like settle the estate. So,
You got that email too?
we'll see, yeah.
I have it in my.
We're
calendar.
Yeah.
No.
Pay
I would say
all you do.
try to put it on there, and if it doesn't happen
Apparently
then,
they're
then we can
related
find
to
another
Nigerian
time
friends.
for 'em, yeah.
Okay,
Feel bad for those guys.
I'll reach out to them.
The email that
You'll
said
reach
they were
out.
looking for a work session in August.
Who is that?
Oh, August.
So they were looking for August, we can see.
Is
if
there a
the
5th in
31st
August or no?
No,
I'd say, cause we're only having one meeting in August as well, yeah,
no.
No, there's 2 meetings.
2.
It's just later, it's the 14th, so it's later into August before we have our first.
Yeah, cause the first is weird.
Me dear.
We can try the 31st, and if they can't make it, then we'll shoot for one if everybody's
And
in.
then do we invite,
I'll reach out to them.
planning and zoning, a couple of members from them?
The 31st?
No,
Yeah,
for
the
the, if we can't do the 31st.
They're welcome to come to work.
That's true.
So yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
I talked to some of you about this, and some of you I think received emails about parade chairs,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
whether you want that to come back as a topic for discussion.
I personally would rather just see it, maybe just draft a little response back, because it just seems like,
The
okay,
education on not doing that is gonna be rough.
The thing that worries me the most is enforcement. Do you want me to
Yeah,
stop
that's what I'm
speaking
saying.
about
No, what-
the setting of parade chairs?
Yeah.
The parade chair.
Parade chairs.
No saving seats, man.
I don't mind the chairs, but the concern is those high ropes or those between tree and trees, maybe that.
Yeah.
But
I mean, is that,
That's still
I
enforcement.
guess, Todd, is that our liability if somebody runs into a chair that's in Park Strip?
No.
I think that was the concern that he mentioned, was the city would be liable for injuries, and we are not, correct? I just don't like meddling and stuff, that just seems like
Yeah.
we're meddling. personally, but if you guys wanna listen to it, I'm always game.
And then I had a phone call from a nonprofit that operates in Utah County that was wondering if the council would consider waiving the rental fees for the community room to hold a community dance for teenagers for the next 4 months. Is that something that you all want to discuss or have any conversation with you
Like a monthly dance for 4 months in a row for Utah County teenagers.
It says that they're for Salt Lake County and Utah County teenagers. They do this in Payson, at community center there. And they have a certain number of Salt Lake County people that come to Payson who are interested in something in Salt Lake County.
My standard response is no, because our fee isn't exorbitant, it's simply to cover the cost of cleaning and things, and it doesn't even do that, and especially with a group like that, it'll be a mess.
Okay. That's what seems to be.
They're welcome to come, great to have that sort of thing, but I mean, it's a nominal fee just to cover cleaning costs and open doors and all, that's the sort of thing.
And that will be coming back to you in August.
How much do we charge to do the little stage out there?
But the bandstand?
Yeah.
It's $150 for half a day. That's what I just talked to Lauren, but it's open in public space, so you can utilize it as long as nobody has it reserved. So you don't get the amenities of,
It's just not very,
Speakers.
it's just not very much. If you're having a youth test and they wanted to have it, they could do a fundraiser for $150.
especially for the next couple of months, they could do it outside.
It would be more fun to do it,
I agree,
unless it's 100 and whatever today.
well,
Okay. That's all I have, Mayor.
That's all I have. Anything else? Okay. Council discussion of future citizen recognition, I think I'll have pause pending our discussion. Okay, 2.1, presentation of the Harriman City Economic Development Strategic Plan completed by Zion Public Finance. Blake.
Okay, so this was a project that we kicked off about a year ago, and Zion Church completed it several months ago. We have Aaron Sanborn from Zion Church Public Finance tonight to present this item and just kind of run through it. Told him he had about an hour and a half, so. So we just have a few slides here and just a quick summary of the report. The report was in the packet, so if you had a chance to read it, congratulations. It was kind of long, but there's some good information. Great.
My name's Blake. Great to be here with you this afternoon, Mayor and Council and staff. It's been fun for our team to work on this project for the past year, and really want to just give you some of the main takeaways that we found as we went through this process. And really, that's kind of the key background, key findings of that, and then kind of what we saw as kind of the vision going forward and how to get there in the end. So when we look at the key findings, we're looking at a lot of economic data, we're looking at sales tax analysis, we're looking at demographics to see kind of where those opportunities are in the city, but also pairing that with what we're actually seeing out in the marketplace. When it comes to actual development for commercial real estate, things like that, make sure that even though we're being visionary, we're planning ahead, we're still basing things in reality. This is no secret to anybody here. Harriman has grown very rapidly. And even though the building rates have declined over the past few years, there still is substantial amounts of building going on in this area. And the population, growing out to about 115,000, it provides a lot of opportunity when it comes to the economics of this area. Comparatively to Salt Lake County and the state, lower median ages here, higher median incomes, larger household size. These that kind of play both sides of the court when it comes to economics. Some of those things are very good because it means that you have a young workforce, an educated workforce, you have more spending power, but at the same time, it can potentially have an impact detrimentally on the ability of labor. If there are large families, then maybe a mother or father has to stay home with children and can't be there in the workforce full time. So it's things to understand that the city, even with the basic demographics, is poised very well to see success when it comes to economic development. The growth is still projected to continue, through 2050. Those are very supportive of continued growth. Retail developers, commercial developers like seeing communities that are still building, still growing, because that helps to support the ability for businesses to come in, to find consumers, and to find a labor force that is going to support those businesses. The growth that according to Wasatch Front is going to mainly occur kind of along the southeast of the city and also in the northwest. Kind of those areas are still yet to be built out, which will coincide later on with some of those key economic areas that we identified because of that growth. Employment growth kind of follows very similar trends, and this is one of the important stats, is that currently about 95% of the Harriman labor force leaves the city every day to go work someplace else, whether that's up in Salt Lake, down in Utah County, or other places. This is significant for a few reasons, because it means there is a lower daytime population here, which some different businesses view negatively, because it's less support for them during key business hours. As well, it also places a strain on transportation infrastructure. It makes it harder for people to get in and out, and makes it so that the city has to invest more in order to ease those burdens. Remote work is one of the areas we looked at a little bit, because this is an interesting new anomaly that has been impacting the labor force over the past few years. It's hard to identify exactly how many people are working remotely, but based on kind of the data we saw, there's a potential for almost 8,000 people in the labor force to be working remotely, which that kind of reverses the trend of that low daytime population. And so that's a key one to keep in mind, particularly with the labor force that's here. A lot of the labor force is focused in around, jobs that are typically considered white collar jobs that could be working remotely. And so even though 95% is technically, exported to other communities, there may be a sizable population that is retained here to be able to support commercial development. And job growth is anticipated to continue and be strong through the city through 2050 as well. That is significant because if you look at projections from the federal government as far as the square footage that is needed for different types of jobs, there's a tremendous potential for the city to be able to capture commercial development across industrial, retail, and office space. The note with this is that this all won't necessarily be captured here within the city, because there is labor being exported to other communities. But you can see there's a potential for 300 acres or so of land needed to support the commercial square footage for the employment growth that's going to occur in this area. There's a sizable amount that can be captured here in the city, and this is one of the important things because it helps kind of tell the narrative of how important it is for the city to plan ahead and to preserve commercial space to be able to support those jobs in the future. It's much easier to just turn it into homes right now, but there's a missed opportunity perhaps to preserve that. You can see currently there's not as much of that acreage. The retail, is showing right now that it is outpacing what is technically needed according to that square footage, but you can see by 2040 you're starting to lose ground on that available square footage that may be needed. One of the interesting areas that we like to look at with these reports is what we call the sales tax leakage. This is essentially a measurement of the taxable sales that are made within a community. And that's not just Harriman residents, that's anyone who comes in from out of town and spends money here in the city. If we're seeing a capture rate over 100%, it means that the city is capturing more than what is expected based off of the Utah per capita average spending. If you're capturing 100%, you're right in line with where we expect it to be, and under 100%, we're capturing less. Now, you can see, obviously, the number there, less than 34% of overall capture, and so the city is leaking a significant amount of taxable sales, almost $790 million in taxable sales.
That's about $4 million local option.
So that's a significant amount of revenue that the city's missing out on to other communities. It's not saying that Harriman residents aren't spending money, they're just spending it elsewhere because they're needing to find those goods and services. There are a number of areas where you can see that there are significant gains to be had, both in the total dollar amount. We look at motor vehicle and parts dealers, there's a significant amount of ground to be captured. Or even in areas that have low capture rates, whether that's, accommodation or again, motor vehicle, where the city is able to focus in on those areas to find homes for those kinds of businesses. Because there's obviously a lack of that currently within the city. Now, all these may not make sense in the city. There are definitely trade-offs that come with a lot of these categories. Accommodation is a low capture rate for most communities, but not every city wants to have a bunch of hotels in the city. And so there are trade-offs that have to be considered with that, but it gives the city a good guidepost for where it can look for future businesses to attract. Comparative to other communities, you can see kind of the per capita spending. Statewide, per capita, we spend about $20,000 annually. Second only to Eagle Mountain. Before working for Zions, I was the economic development director for Eagle Mountain, so that number is very familiar to me. But you can see, in a very similar community, not a lot of established retail, and so the per capita sales being captured in the city are significantly lower than the state average. This provides opportunities for the city to focus on. One thing that we're seeing is that communities that are focusing on unique opportunities, whether that's in unique retailers or experiences. Shoppers more and more are being enticed by experiences. You look at some shopping centers that are being redeveloped or being developed, they're focusing on gathering spaces, things that bring people together in order to spread the sales tax dollars around. From the commercial real estate market, we just kind of briefly go through this. There's a tale of two different stories here. You have the office and retail market, which are both kind of facing headwinds. They're both kind of in an uncertain period where retail, we're seeing the amount of square footage needed per capita is decreasing to around 16 to 18 square feet, where before it was 20 to 24 square feet that was planned per capita. And then also, many users right now are very reluctant to build any kind of office space that does not have a user already identified. They don't want offices going vacant, especially with combining this with interest rates. It makes for a very perfect storm of kind of a disincentive for builders to develop these things. But what we are seeing with office and retail is what we call flight to quality. Different development that has a lot of amenities, a lot of things for people to do, or unique opportunities, or very experiential in nature. Those are different areas in the office and retail that are doing very well by comparison. The industrial market is kind of the exact opposite. This has been doing very, very well for the past several years. It's been fueled a lot by e-commerce, by a shift towards that. Vacancy rates are historic lows, and so you're building it and almost immediately it's filled, and it's not staying vacant for very long. It's an area that's very needed in the space, but it also again has to make sense. This kind of use can be very beneficial for a community because it can bring in additional jobs and bring in those things, but it doesn't generate a tremendous amount of tax revenue for a city, and it's not always the most visually appealing development as well. And so there's again trade-offs there, but it is an area where it makes sense, does very well. So to move on, as we kind of looked at the city as a whole, looking at vacant land, looking at businesses in the area, we identified kind of four major areas that we felt kind of moving forward are key economic nodes for the city to really focus on. Out in the west, we see this really as a major center for future commercial. You have transportation corridors going in to the far west of that will bring in traffic from the north. Obviously, you'll have a lot of natural growth from the Olympia development, and based on that growth, that development alone could support over 400,000 square feet of new retail space. It's a prime market for that, even though right now it's very green. And so this is one of the ones that will develop perhaps a little bit slower than other areas, but once it does start to get the development there, this would be a very important area. It also has a unique aspect with outdoor recreation, where there's close proximity to outdoor recreation that can serve as a catalyst for some specific uses that may be able to draw more people into the area. Looking towards the center, that's that green area. And here, obviously, you can see these red dots. Those are existing businesses, and so there's a lot of development that's already occurred in there. And we project that there could be, increased development there in the area. In this area, there's a lot of space both for kind of the traditional larger retail, but also the mixed use component as well. Particularly right here, surrounding where we are here at City Hall. It's a very unique opportunity to be able to have city-owned land to be able to develop in a way that provides an economic benefit, but also a public benefit in the area. We looked at some comparisons, and you see a lot of similar areas focused on a lot of smaller retail, more kind of boutique retail, what we'd say, or even local businesses. One of the things is through the analysis we identified around 80% or more of the Harriman businesses are home-based businesses, and many of those may be looking for commercial space, but just can't find it in a traditional retail center. And so this could be a very a good area to be able to provide space for some of those smaller businesses. Up to the north, this is some of those categories we talked about earlier with the sales tax leakage. This is an area where perhaps some of those businesses that could support those weaker performing categories, particularly the auto sales and entertainment. It has great visibility and access from Mountain View Corridor. And also kind of the interesting thing, even though it's not in city limits, the future Salt Lake V Stadium provides an opportunity to be able to bring people in. That would be a very big gathering place. And that space up there may not have the ability to capture all of the potential development that could occur. So there's here as well, we could look at dining, some entertainment options to be able to support that kind of use. And then finally, down in the south, this is really an interesting area because it can support really all different types of development. It's an important gateway to the city, and so it's important to develop it in a way that is going to not only benefit the city, but also provide a welcoming atmosphere and an introduction really to Harriman. The higher education that's there, the housing that's there, really goes to support additional retail coming to the area, but also the industrial flex space type use performs very well again, as we saw. But it's a spot where it can work very well, especially because of the access that it has, both to Mountain View Corridor and then quickly to I-15. One of the things to kind of not to pour cold water on it, but to be aware of is that economic development does not occur in a bubble. There are regional competitive sites that are already developed that will pull potential users and also shoppers from these areas. We overlay those different 1, 3, and 5 mile buffers just to kind of give an idea of where those businesses are going to be pulling people from. You can see there's a lot of overlap in those circles and in how they're going to approach their trade area. So this could potentially limit, but it also provides an opportunity for businesses who may not be able to locate in the more prime area to move a little bit further west, to be able to look for additional space. But also provides an opportunity to focus on unique experiences or things that aren't currently found in that area, to be able to provide something different, something new, and to still build off of that success, because just like those sites overlap with Harriman, the sites here in Harriman overlap with cities that surround, so you can pull people out here to the west. When it comes to the vision, it's great to always focus on being able to bring in new business, to bring in new investment, but at the same time, we don't want to lose what makes Harriman unique. And so that's why really the vision is to maximize the unique assets that are here and create opportunities that are fitting in with Harriman's brand and enhance what you have already going on in your place here in the marketplace. To do that, we're combining out here the data we gathered earlier with that vision, and really kind of the three main goals that we identified to be able to help in this process is to create destination retail, to focus on that quality retail, to provide experiences that aren't replicated online, and provide a regional draw. That is what we're seeing as a success in the marketplace right now. And cities who are able to do that successfully are seeing more investment in their areas. Goal 2, to create and encourage recreational, educational, and entertainment options to improve the quality of life for existing residents and draw outdoor recreation businesses to locate in Harriman. Economic development at its base level is about improving quality of life by providing services, providing opportunities for individuals, provide jobs for individuals. And that outdoor recreation is perhaps a unique one based off of the things that are going on here in the city that could be enhanced. And third, to diversify the types of industries in Harriman, while maintaining the city's unique heritage and brand, by creating more local quality job opportunities. Harriman may never compete fully with Salt Lake City as being a job center. That's okay. There's no need to overhaul the city and become a Salt Lake City. But creating jobs in the city, provides opportunities and provides for more of that ancillary benefit to the city, both in the workforce, but also in bringing daytime population and being able to support retail establishments more, throughout the day, and that will draw more in. So these are kind of the main takeaways that we saw from this, and to move the city forward. And obviously, the city is seeing great success already. That's one of the things that, as we looked at the data information, the city is already doing a tremendous amount of good in supporting economic development. We think that through these efforts can kind of help continue that through the future. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, it kind of just says what kind of felt or knew.
Yeah, confirmed a lot of my suspicions about a lot of stuff for sure.
How do we track on the growth or building permits from other cities around us?
Still, that over here.
I'm assuming they're having the same downtrends.
Most of these that in the area are having kind of a very similar trend. Some of them less so. I mean, Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain,
Yeah.
they're still seeing kind of those high levels that Harriman saw several years ago. But most have seen a slowdown. Through a lot of it just through national economic challenges. Interest rates are making it very difficult, not only to buy a home, but also for builders to get financing to do that. So you are seeing, kind of a regional downturn, but still fairly strong. And there are definitely cities who are performing a lot worse when it comes to that, which again is a benefit to Harriman because that provides more of a story to tell a retailer saying, yeah, we're still growing, we're still adding new households, which that's what they like because it's increased buying power coming into the area.
One thing that we as a city are doing is implementing a new system, and Blake can talk about it a little bit, called Alpha Maps.
So yeah, it's a software, Sherry, we had a demo on it when we were at ICSC. And it, you can go in and pick a site and it will pull all sorts of data for that site. It actually can tell us what tenants would work best at that site. It tells you traffic data up to yesterday, as recent as the day before's data, based on cell phone usage in the area. So you can get number of people that have been visiting the site. You can also pull data where you can see where they went before they went to that site and where they went after they went to that site.
Kind of creepy, huh?
That is actually
It's all-
a little terrifying.
All sold by.
But it's all metadata, so it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
You check the box somewhere.
Yeah.
Is it able to pull your buying trends, shopping trends from your in-store cards and all that stuff?
I don't
If it has that detail
to that level, so the cell phones they're buying, of course,
Yeah.
from Verizon and AT&T, sometimes they can look at that psychographic, we'll have to look at it.
What's really nice about it is, so we saw the leakage report, so we can see what we wanna target, say like accommodations at the hotel. And someone comes and says, I want a hotel on this site, we can ask them what hotel, stick it on that site, and see if it's going to actually compete or do well with the other hotels in the area. It's gonna be some pretty helpful software as we get looking.
Pretty great, huh?
Another thing we can look at is, we're talking about town days. We can put a note at the park and see how many people were there, what the spike in population was, where they were going before and after. It can help us go out and market. Say, hey, do you wanna contribute to town days, cause you had 4,000 visitors come to your business before they did that town days
Yeah.
last year, so.
we're excited. We just had a demo a couple days ago and
It's cool, huh?
yeah, it's really neat. I'm excited about it.
Cool and creepy.
And we can also like look at Black Ridge and the trails and RSL. And
That's what we were looking at, it was like, it just has so many more advantages besides just economic development, so many
Yeah.
areas that the city could really benefit from using the data.
yeah, so we're excited about that.
With that study, with the study science did and that software, we're getting a lot of tools to help us really focus in on, if someone comes with a proposal, will it work, or are we setting ourselves up with a business that'll be out of business in 5 years? So help out with that.
Okay. Sorry we don't have more questions.
It's fine.
You were so thorough.
Yeah, their report was very thorough.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely can study it more, it was, well, our packet was 550 pages, so there you go.
Sorry.
And we even left some out.
Thank you.
And we appreciate your work on it, appreciate it.
Absolutely, happy to do that.
Thanks.
Sarah.
2.2, quarterly, should we do this or should we skip?
Well, this is just if you have questions. But you could wait till after the end.
The time came.
It's really late.
2.2, quarterly economic development update. Sandra, you just wanna take questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of updates for you though. Jamba Juice officially opened today. I know that they had their open site up prior, but we got them official today. And Royal Pickleball opened last Friday.
That's a fun place.
Yeah.
If you get a chance to go there, it's like the Cadillac of pickleball courts.
And Pizzeria 24 is close. They just have a couple of corrections and stuff and they should be opening. They're located next to Crave Cookie over by Tony Burge.
Oh, and the dry cleaner.
The
Yeah.
Brooker's Ice Cream, all of that.
And you all should have received the invite for Jamba Juice's ribbon cutting in August.
Yeah, that's right.
I know, you're doing great, I went to Slackwater a couple nights ago, and that was so good.
It's so
So,
neat.
and again, it's kind of what he was talking about on his destinations retail, because that, when I was talking to my son, like, oh, you guys have a Slackwater? You know, it's just, they have a
Did they have
following.
the garage doors open when you went?
Huh?
They have like little garage doors?
They didn't have them
Oh, it's
open.
gorgeous, the blown
But it was really windy the day I went,
Oh, okay.
we were right next to them, so they probably didn't wanna do that, but yeah, so I love that that's, you know, cause truly that, same with Winco, a destination retailer, same kind of thing. We just keep pulling people like that in, I think that they'll
Well,
stay
that's a
in
target that
business.
we're trying to work on too, when we're working with our developers and the businesses that we're outreaching with. That it is to create the vision and the draw of businesses that you aren't seeing in our neighboring cities.
Love it. I mean, obviously you have to have some, like, you know, we have a McDonald's,
Services.
everyone has, but yeah, I love it, you guys are doing a great job. I'll be quiet now.
Mountain View Plaza is gonna be having an amendment coming to the planning commission next week for the council. They have some really cool uses that are coming on, and the road that's getting built around there should be open this fall, so that whole area will have a lot of destination, a lot of pressure to develop quickly.
It's looking good.
Good job, guys.
Everybody wants to be in Harriman, like they told us at ICSC. Everybody wants to be here.
I think things are gonna happen and it's gonna come all at once.
Yeah, well.
I don't know if y'all received the email from EDC Utah that they're now merging with Salt Lake City Chamber.
I did not get that.
It came out from their
Not
LinkedIn.
surprising,
Wow.
not surprising.
So we did a good job by not.
I mean, it's so surprising, cause I can't imagine they would have much going on together.
Well, it was just interesting when we were at the, they did a dinner in Vegas and it was shrinking, it felt shrinking, so it's interesting that it's probably good.
Okay, thank you for all you do.
If I could just ask for one comment, just on future reports, when we talk about a area, can you let us know the cross streets of some of those areas? Cause they're just named business development, I'm like, I have no freaking idea where that is, I've been here for
Yeah,
Can I get the map?
years and years and years, and I'm
I
like,
did look further down the maps,
There's-
but even
there
some
should
of,
be-
even
there's
some of the
some
maps,
maps
I
in
was
there.
like,
I got
is
it, but
that-
I'm just saying
is
that
that
it's
the
not
south
like,
end of Mountain View or the north end?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
sure on a couple
Sure. We have this conversation among staff, cause sometimes the development names don't
Yeah,
necessarily match what we know.
I have,
So the map helped, but there were a few where I just wasn't sure.
we also have a GIS
Oh.
map that's
It's live now.
live now, that it's an economic development map. So if someone wants to, they see an empty shell building and they wanna lease it, they can go on that map and click on it, it'll give them the information of who to contact, how many square feet it is, what the zoning is. We're trying to make it easier for people, as Aaron talked about, that have maybe a home-based business that they wanna move into a site.
And it also is
It's great
searchable
that
for
we can
residents, so if a resident's searching for a certain type of business, they can
Yeah.
search that way.
Yeah, it has the existing businesses on it.
That's awesome.
So that might be helpful as we start pushing these out to go into.
That is cool though.
Oh, yeah.
You can click a button instead of
That's
scrolling
cool.
through 20 more pages.
Right.
Yep, just give you a link to it.
It might be easier.
Thank you. Okay, 2.3, discussion regarding updates of the Harriman City Development Standards. Jonathan, always good to have you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate in advance, bearing through a very dry subject. But in a weird way, I'm kind of excited to get this started with this group. And if it's okay, I'm gonna kind of sit by my comfort blanket here with my laptop in case there's any questions that pop up.
You did too
I
many
probably,
fancy
yeah, I
names.
probably went to the end. So this first, it's okay. Thank you. This first, the only intent of this slide, there's obviously no need to read this. So the structure of the standards, it's a separate document that is adopted through code, but through Title IX. And maybe the biggest point here is in C, that the city engineer essentially is then required to administer and to interpret the standards as developments come in with applications. And anyway, so that's essentially adopts it in chapter 9, but then of course reference of the latest edition. And so anyway, that's just, so then when we get to the point when we adopt this, of course, there would need to be some addition or some verbiage changes to update to this edition.
Jonathan tried to attach the standards book to your packet, which was
No
another
way.
Yeah, they're
5
500 pages long, so.
Jackie and I said, no.
We did have a
There's no link.
Is he an engineer or
I read it all
something?
last night.
You're gonna engineer the remote control there, John?
It's on now. All right.
Whoa, that was,
That had an effect.
we're not ready for that, Jimmy. We can't handle that.
Put your seatbelts on.
Okay,
Very nice.
So
got a little motion sickness.
the structure of this, chapter 1, of course, we just help the developers understand the process. Chapter 2, we outline what they're supposed to submit when they have an application for an engineering review. Chapter 3, we essentially tell the developers what their obligations are. Chapter 4, this is probably the meat and potatoes of it, where the consultants abide by the engineering standards and criteria, and we outline it here, this part here. Chapter 5 is largely for construction, for contractors when they construct, these are the specifications. Chapter 6, of course, those are the standard details that we have, and then there's a lot of appendices.
Can I ask a question? How, go back one, please. How much of all of this is unique to Harriman versus we're just complying with state statute and the engineering requirements are state statute? How much of this is unique that we're creating? Cause sometimes I get pushback from developers or things like that, they're like, oh, you're gonna, it's so much harder here, or things like that, and it's like, how much of that is really unique versus everyone else's too?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and of course, I'm not gonna have a good percentage to give you, but we are pretty comparable in a lot of fronts. I will point out as we go along to some of these updates, which are state-driven and, and then of course, this is an item that we're requiring and how it compares perhaps, or maybe this isn't what its cost implications would have.
Yeah, that's good, thank you.
And I can certainly do that as we move along. And of course, I'm gonna breeze through a lot of this, and of course, you can slow me down as we go.
My intent is not to make this go longer, I was just very curious. I noticed even in the packet, it talked a lot about, just bringing it up to date with new state statutes and things like that, so I was just really curious.
I will say that there is a concerted effort made to ensure that we somewhat stay in general practice with those in surrounding cities. And you will see that some of these updates make an effort to do so that there is some uniformity. All right, so in total, there are 119 items that are of significance, which essentially just means there's some grammatical changes. Delinda, she works in our department, does a great job making us look a little better when we write, clean this up. But those were not obviously in there, so. This presentation, of course, we're gonna go through all the major items and maybe a select significant items. The first 3 items are specific to an accommodation to a city code, but it's not mandated by the code, but we're just changing our process to make it happen. The process is changing a little bit through the entitlement process where they now will need full final engineering approval before going to planning commission. And so we've modified the procedure, and items 3, these are all listed in chronological order in the standards, but those first 3 items are just a reflection of that change.
And to add to that, this is one of those that is state driven. So one of the laws that came out from the last legislative session was that cities can't require engineering plan sets in 2 different areas. So currently, it was, they'd go to planning commission with their engineering plan set and we'd do a high level review, but we wouldn't look to approve their plans until after planning commission approval, gave their recommendation and approval. The state now says you can't require a review of engineering plans in 2 separate areas. So to be able to just do this all at once and only require it once, we're moving our engineering review, which generally happened after planning commission, to now before. So planning commission, by the time an applicant gets to planning commission, now they're having all of these standards that we're gonna talk about applied to their plans before planning commission even makes a recommendation or a decision on a
Is that
subdivision.
harder for you guys?
It's not necessarily. The only difficult thing is that we're gonna get them to a certain point, and for the smaller developments, they like to have some kind of assurance, like a planning commission approval, before they pay for all their engineering and get all of their plans approved. So it's hurting probably the smaller developments, but from a staff level, we're just moving our process up a little earlier than we did before.
It should make it a little easier for the planning commission as well, there won't be any of the ambiguities that we see sometimes where they're putting conditions on because they don't know. The developer intends to do that, but now there are additional conditions on there, so.
Is there any time that the planning commission makes all major changes or suggestions or to the engineering side of it?
So, yeah, there have been some, like Nathan's saying, that their plans aren't fully developed yet, and so planning commission will put in some conditions.
But that may help with this new process.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're getting at,
The P&Z
is
can't change their engineering too much.
hopefully the conditions of approval get smaller because engineering's already had a chance to look at the plans and vet, oh yeah, the intersections are okay, like we know they can go right in, right out here, or the water is okay. So in a way, it should be more efficient for planning commission as well as the development, but like I said, it does hurt smaller developments that wanna get some kind of assurance that their land uses will work before they kinda get to
We have had that
engineering.
experience once before, it was on the Freeman Farms project. We had a road coming out across from Harriman Elementary. Planning Commission made it so that road couldn't come out of that location. And we didn't have this rule then, so we were a little more flexible, but if they do something like that again, we will have to go back and change those things. And it had to be really rooted in some type of standard or ordinance or something to go back and do that.
On these smaller ones that have those issues possibly, or the they don't wanna pay for upfront, is there a way to get essential head nod or land use decision before you go to review?
Not in an official capacity. There is a pre-application meeting that they can set up with planning right now that kind of gives them, hey, these are all of our standards that you'll have to meet, and they can kind of get some direction, but as far as an official, yeah, this looks good, we don't really have that mechanism.
We wouldn't have that authority
Yeah, you wouldn't,
anyways. And so, and this is, again, this is a state, this is reaction to what the state put in. in the review, because they also tightened down how much time we have to look at
Right.
things and all that, so.
And just adding to that, and kind of, it's already been said, but we do our best when they do these pre-application meetings to identify perhaps deal killers for the projects that they would say, okay, I'm not gonna invest on this. So
Yeah.
we do our best in an unofficial capacity, kind of like the president, to do that. So items 4 and 5, well, excuse me, sorry, before I move on, any other questions or comments on that? Items 4 and 5, so the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District is doing a water budget. We are, and as a result of that, we are requiring all developers to either, well, they cannot exceed 1.35 acre feet per year on their projects, and then if, of course, if they do, then they have to bring water to the table. So anyway, items 4 and 5 are specific to that. They're just in different items or different locations on the standards. Does anyone have any questions on that? That's kind of a major item that developers are really trying to find ways to work through that. Yeah,
It's the reality of where we live.
it's true. Okay, item 6, so there's a lot of items in this one here where, we've listened to our public works crew, and there's some items here that help as far as maintenance goes. These items, Sherry, I will say that a lot of these are pretty standard items that we're asking for here. It's pretty standard in other cities, I would say, but a pond rim, we're asking for in applicable cases. An underground facility, Sandy does this, is a pre-treatment facility that's required to kind of take care of the sediment loading before it gets to a detention pond. That's to make it so they don't have to rip up their pond at a later time in case it has to be maintained. A low flow piping system, that is unique. I would say that is unique to Harriman City.
Is it costly?
A low flow pipe in a detention pond to make it so that we don't have a constant nuisance flow going through the pond. That's to allow in cases that there could have a recreational use, that it could keep it dry.
Is it pretty costly?
Yeah, so
It probably depends on
Yeah.
what it has to be.
Depends on the size.
I don't know if our standards still say it, but it used to say soggy bottom.
trying to avoid
We're trying
So
to
we're getting rid
avoid,
of the
avoid.
soggy pond.
Isn't that like in a song somewhere?
Soggy bottom boys.
Yeah, soggy bottom.
It's the-
Do we ever have soggy
brother.
ponds? It feels like with our
Yeah, right.
soil out here, it doesn't seem like we'd have
We
soggy.
percolate quite a bit.
Yeah,
It's only when it silts up, right, you get sediment in there and then it the water will just sit there and won't go anywhere. It's pretty rare, but we get those sometimes, but that's to obviously avoid.
Helps on our ponds where we have a lower allowable rate, because then that has to sit longer to discharge out, so we have that low flow pipe. Bottom.
Historically, and this is, any other items on that one? So items 7 and 10, and that's kind of all over the place, but 7 and 10, historically, what we used to do is we'd collect a fee from a developer for streetlights and for street signs. We would order them, and then we would stage it, and then they would install it. And the intent there was for uniformity, that we would order it, and then we would get some uniformity of what they would look like. What we've done now is we've tightened up what the specifications are, but we are no longer taking a fee, and we just give them the detail. That is, the developer gets the details and the specification requirements. They order it, they pay for it, and they install it, since it's a developer obligation. It essentially takes us out of the picture of ordering. It's holding and storing. Zach and Adam will love this change. So will streets anyways, because they end up installing in some cases, so we're trying to get out of that. So that's what item 7 and 10 is about.
And I would add that sometimes developments would blame us, hey, we don't have our streetlights, where are they? Right, this takes us out of that picture that, hey, they go as fast as they can on their own schedule, and it's all up to them to get their streetlights and street signs on their own.
I like it.
Item number 8, there's a standard detail that was added to our stack of standards that kind of outlines what a pond outlet structure should look like. This is to kind of avoid anything getting clogged in the event of a storm event. It also adds for ability to maintain it. We've really kind of let the developers choose their adventure on what that looks like, but we found that some work, some don't. And so we've developed that detail. So that's number 8, it's just an additional detail to tighten that up. Item number 9 is there's a form that we've added, so that developers can do their water usage report. And this form kind of assists the developers to do those calculations. And I think that's it for the major items. Now we're jumping into what we call substantial items. Item number 11, I have received some pushback from developers in conversation on this one specifically, and I'll explain that hopefully briefly here. But a dry utility plan essentially is asking for gas and power to show where they're gonna place these utilities in their projects. That is not standard for Harriman City right now. The driver for that is, we're finding a lot of conflicts in the field when it comes time to be constructed. Of course, these are not city utilities, but they're public utilities. And so in areas where they have really tight setbacks, that becomes a bigger problem. And so what we're asking is a developer, if they have a very small setback, say then that's great, but give us a plan and show us where the gas and the power is gonna go so we can avoid these issues. So
They have to
anyway,
have specific separation between themselves and also to the building,
Building.
so sometimes you.
So what's the pushback you're getting?
so it's an extra plan, it's extra time for their consultants to have to provide.
Yeah, so
So it's easier to just jam it in and say, oops, sorry.
We always get
separately,
Dominion saying they're not gonna come in and put the gas in, or they wanna go under the sidewalk or on the road,
yeah,
which is already paved.
and separately, the developments are having to get plan approval from Rocky Mountain Power and Dominion. But we want them all in one place so that there is no conflict. So if they get an approval from Rocky Mountain Power or Dominion, that those two plans aren't separate and independent, but they actually work together, right? In the case where we have these smaller setbacks where, like Nathan said, gas can't go very close to a foundation, and Rocky Mountain Power may have a switchgear that takes up the whole PUE, right? Where's Dominion gonna go then at that point? And a lot of times they're bouncing out into the right of way, into under a sidewalk or under the road. And so we'd like to have those figured out ahead of time.
So we thought it was fair that, okay, so you can have this teeny setback, great, but then you just need to provide that plan. So I think that they'll be able, I think that's a more workable conversation with them.
And the setback requirement is what triggers that.
Is that only front setback, Jonathan?
What's that?
Is that only front?
Only
fronting setback?
Front, yeah, front setbacks. Item number 12, of course, is a result of, council's decision to discontinue and adding additional secondary water systems, so we've removed that obligation for the developer to provide it. Item number 13 is to add resilience to our water system and to try to minimize how many dead ends that we have. So items of redundancy and additional hydraulic capacity in case there's a leak or something happens. So what this would do is we would maximize a dead end line before, so they wouldn't necessarily have to restrict how long their dead end is, they just have to provide a redundant feed to the end of that line. Now, I will say for all these, and we'll get to this, an item that's been added here is, it's not necessarily new to the process, but it's called a deviation to the standard application. If there's a compelling reason they cannot meet any of these requirements, it's viewed by a committee, which is comprised of Public Works Director, City Engineer, Community Development Director. So of course, if it doesn't work to meet that item, they'll look at it, review it, and then of course they get the final say whether that's okay to deviate from that. So anyway, again, item 13 is to be able to provide more redundancy. 14, from feedback we're hearing from those who design rockeries, which is rock retaining walls, to mitigate risk of failure on those, we've proposed to put a maximum height of 10 feet. Otherwise, they would need a different kind of wall.
Yeah, that's good. 10 feet's even pretty high, so.
It is.
And then is there a shelving requirement for another 10 feet on it?
There could be, it kind of would depend on the, they would have to get it engineered for anything that's 4 feet or larger.
Usually when you get above, I think 7 or 8, they start putting backward units.
Item number 15, the sewer districts changed their name, so we're updating the plat to reflect that, as well as CenturyLink and Comcast had block signatures on the plat. That has since been removed. Excuse me, that is proposed to be removed, so that we're getting public utility sign as only essentially for the plat. Those are all the items I'm touching on for now. There's a lot more items in there. And of course, the next question is there any items that you have you want to touch on? And I guess the question is, are there any specific items that we want to hit, or are we ready to move this for decision for a upcoming city council? We just kind of want to get a pulse for if there's any items that we need to bring up and talk about before we even get there.
And I know personally that just because there were a lot of changes in it, and in 2 weeks in the summer, it's hard for me to review that much information, so if we could wait 4 weeks before we come back with it, I would prefer that. This gives me a better chance to.
And
So you're not
August,
meeting for 5 weeks.
We don't meet till August 14th again, so.
Oh, okay, that worked better. I was like, don't do it in 2 weeks, I'll never figure this out.
Yes, August would be the next time we would
Yes.
be able to come shoot.
Okay, 5 was great.
This is so far out over my skis trying to make this decision. I mean, I know it's a legislative decision to change these things, but
Right.
I have very little understanding about the implications of these changes and how they're affecting everything. And honestly, I haven't received one call or email or message from a developer or builder, anybody complaining about any of these changes or asking us to consider something about any of the changes. So I'm assuming that between cleaning stuff up, solving problems proactively, and regulatory requirements, that this is what needs to happen. So
Explanation was good, the reasoning seemed sound. Honesty.
Thank you.
See you in 5 weeks.
All right, yeah, got it.
Okay. 2.4, discussion of proposed city council citizen recognition policy. Jackie.
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to present. Based off of what council requested, staff actually did a draft policy on how to help facilitate the process of recognitions of contributions and achievements, and so that we can honor those. Part of the policy does go through the guiding principles, what we would want to consider for those recognitions, as well as how each of the items would be, how the nominations would be conducted, and how they would be selected for that. A couple key points for staff recommendation was limiting to 2 recognitions in a council meeting. And then I do need to get a little bit of direction on how the council would like to handle pictures. And if they had any changes in the requested changes, or if this was the direction you guys were wanting to go, or if I completely missed the mark, that's great too, and we can start over.
I think it's really important that they get a picture with the mayor. So I think we should just handle it that way.
So just do the max, we can
Stand up there
absolutely
with
do
him and
that.
the rest of us will be in the background.
Everyone's in there.
I don't have to stand up.
Photo bombing.
The only questions from a legal perspective is having a policy better or worse in the day and age we live in.
Typically, policies are better so we give guidance on issuing decisions that are consistent with each other.
You bring up a good point. Sometimes in today's world, if you're doing recognitions, you choose not to recognize somebody. I don't know what that does. I mean, that would argue that you just don't do recognitions if that's the problem. So I think policy is probably a good step, and if you had issues, then you would just cease the process.
I think you did a great job.
Yeah.
So yeah, the nomination process would actually be a submission online, so if a group wanted to do a submission as well, then it would go through that process, and those would be brought here during the work session I anticipated the 1.3, the council discussion of the future that that's where we would discuss those. But, and I wanted to treat all of them the same, so if any of you wanted to do that, then it would have to follow that same process too.
Along photos, I could see recognizing everybody in that agenda item and then doing photos sequentially after. Then you have the whole everybody that's getting recognized is still there. And
Amen.
Watch
Yeah.
Todd roll his eyes at us every time we walk by. Yep. Strong word?
Work to come.
And how do we feel about, limiting it to 2 per
I
meeting?
think that's good.
Okay,
Cause there's weeks we don't have any, so it spreads them out, so I think it's good.
plus if it's a group, it's,
okay. It'll be back at a future meeting for consideration.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and thanks for presenting. I don't ever get to
We
see
don't ever
present. There's always tells yes, no, follow the rule, but.
Okay,
Did we do it so we could do the post? No, or did we?
We can put it at any point.
okay. Chief, we can do this
Let's do it now.
30 minutes?
Yeah.
Easily, okay.
Great, yeah.
Okay.
We have a cutoff.
Somebody wants to do it, who wants to do it? You wanna do it?
I'd love to, both of these, D and F.
Are we,
52-4-205.
so I'm thinking it's
I
just
think it's
gonna be
it's
just D?
just
Only section from top code I have
Sorry, I'm not
No, you're the legal, comes to legal thing.
No.
just the D. We thought we might have property.
Alright.
My wife.
Sorry, sure, I want to discuss. Good.
It was a good
Okay,
thing.
I make a motion to
And I
temporarily
told
recess the city council meeting to go into closed meeting for the following purposes provided in USA code annotated 52-4-205 strategy sessions to discuss the
Oh, it's
purchase
F.
or-
It's sorry, F.
Discussion regarding deployment of security personnel devices or.
I don't have that chart in front of me.
Sorry, I don't either.
I was reading, it's like,
Yeah, we
Yeah,
talked
D is
about
property,
property,
it's
but
not
we don't need to
property.
do property.
Okay,
Okay.
so just.
Sorry.
Motion by Sherry,
second.
second by Teddy, Sherry,
Yes.
Teddy,
Yes.
Jared.
I thought about this. Because it's before, we're not extending the meeting. Consists of my policy, you can say yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Okay, I'll vote yes, we'll go to close, we need, we'll stay here, we need.
legal and admin.
Police legal admin.